today I am really pleased and excited to welcome what I would call my no-nonsense, no bullshit, straight-talking friend and high-performance coach, Ric Moylan. Welcome to Focus on the Fun Stuff.
Nice one. Thanks for having me, Emma. It's lovely to see you.
It's lovely to see you too. We've been friends for a really long time now. And when I started the podcast, you've always been high on the list to tell your story, because I'm just thinking, actually, I don't think we've not had anyone on the podcast so far that coaches really high-performing athletes. So you've worked with Team Hatton, Tony Bellew, Scott Quigg, and it's like 10 world champions you've worked with across different disciplines, but like Liam Broady in tennis. But you also take the learnings and work with really high-level CEOs, founders, business owners as well, don't you? So, Ric, how did you get to, if you just tell the listeners, like put us in the path of how did Ric get from where he was in the centre of Manchester, figuring out his way to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you, by the way, for the intro. I'm gonna try and choose my language carefully. I think like a lot of young people, I found my way with sport. Sport kind of gave me focus as a youngster and kept me out of mischief. Some might say, you know, and so I just wanted to play sport. I wanted to be a sports person, an athlete. And you know, sadly for various reasons, you know, it became apparent that wasn't gonna happen for me. And so it just seemed to be like the natural career choice for me. I wanted to work in sport, and I didn't really have a deep reason why. I just wanted to be around the environment of sport, the culture. I was working as a trainer, a physical trainer at the time, so that seemed the pathway. So I went back to university and I got myself a degree, and I did what back then I would have advised people to do. I got some like work experience and just did anything to get in and around sporting environments, and it didn't really matter which sport at that time. But I became, again, mindful of my language, I was what I'd call a tracksuit wanker. So
what does that mean?
I had my fancy tracksuit for all the various teams that I was working for.
Right, got you.
Yeah, not much else, you know, and certainly wasn't paid very much. And but you know, I loved it, and I just wanted to be in and around sport, and then it, you know, I did find that I had a love for combat sports, and so that was a pathway that I was going to try and make a bit of an impact in. And so, you know, to cut a very long story short, I started working with a number of young up-and-coming, you know, boxers at the time. Tony Bellew, you mentioned, Anthony Crolla.
Oh, yeah.
He was obviously did really well from Manchester. Then there was a few others out of a gym in Manchester. And that then led to me being approached by others and developing a little bit of a reputation sort of locally, with local fighters. But what became apparent quite quickly is that my skill set was in exercise physiology and sports science, and you know, and that was useful. I was helping them out a little bit with bits of nutrition as well. They were all useful sort of skills, but the more I started to work with, you know, a wider sort of catalogue of fighters, it became, you know, quite clear that science can be quite sort of, you know, this is it's numbers based. So, you know, do squats, run faster, do this exercise, upper body, punch harder, and it doesn't take into account whether you're having a bad day or what you've got going on at home, or where your nerves are at, or where your, you know, confidence levels are at, self-esteem, you know, etc. And it became quite apparent that I've got one athlete who is very talented, one athlete is perhaps, you could argue, not as talented, but that athlete was doing better than the athlete with more talent. I suppose what I'm getting at is sports science alone wasn't giving me the answers for this thing called high performance. So I retrained, started looking, deeper into coaching, into human behaviour, into various different things. And yeah, that then led me into being a high performance coach with the primary goal, whether it is in sport or, like you've mentioned, people in the boardroom, giving them the tools that they need to be the best high performer they can be.
Yeah. And so you've combined, I guess, ultimately like the physiology and mindset into a framework that you use. Is it with sports people and founders, the MAPS framework? Is that what you use across all of your client base?
Yeah, I worked, as you touched on before, I worked a lot in British tennis for years. I was with Liam Broady for a number of years, which was a great time in my life, great experience. And then that led to me, as I started to work in the sort of field of mindset and a broader spectrum, I then got into doing some work with Red Bull and Red Bull Racing through a friend of mine, Darren Roberts, and a bunch of different athletes. They all had different requirements in terms of the skill of their individual sport, but what they all had was the requirement for a toolkit to get them to perform at their best. So I absolutely worked across sports for a long period of time. And loved it, by the way. But sport is very much a young single person's lifestyle. I am definitely not either of them. And I was looking. I've got a son, Liam. And when you're working intensely with athletes, you have to be in it. You have to be on
all in.
You have to be on the train, as I've always said over the years.
Yeah.
And it meant that I was away from home a lot. So I wanted to try and balance the two. Could I be a consultant still with some athletes, which I very much am, but also I wanted to be at home for time with my son and this thing called a life. But then equally, I just had an impact that there was something in me that I believed that I had to do. And there was an impact I could create and I could give to people. So a friend of mine, someone who you know actually, Gareth Ainsworth.
Okay.
He approached me over 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, over 10 years ago. And he said to me, I run a sales team.
Yeah.
Love you to come and do a talk for our sales team. And I was like, okay. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? And then it was very, very clear and evident that the situations may be different from athlete arena, boxing ring, tennis court, to boardroom, to pitching in front of your next potential big client. Yeah. Situations are very, very different, but actually the challenges are almost identical. Uh-huh. And the toolkit that you can use for an athlete to control the nerves, an athlete to calm their heart rate down, to be physically and mentally prepared, to be, physically strong, mentally sharp, that toolkit can also be used with a sales team that are in a fast-paced environment, working under pressure. That can be used with a CEO, with an MD. So that was that. Mm-hmm. I went for it.
No way.
Still doing it.
I never knew that's how the business side of it started.
Yeah.
So I just, obviously, this is quite a Mancunian podcast now. I think people are going to listen to it and the two accents that people are talking about. But so Gareth Ainsworth is part of a group of businesses that my PA have worked with their founder for a long time. So I never knew that. Oh, wow. No way.
Yeah.
So, right, back to the podcast then. So just in terms of this mindset piece, and I want to just dig into the MAPS framework, but how do you start to even approach that with either a fighter or a business owner? Because I guess sometimes people need to realise that they've got mindset issues to strengthen or solve, or because I guess there's like a lot of big egos that you work around sometimes, and you can have a mental block to actually what your blind spots are or why you're not performing, or how do you, in terms of mindset work, is there like some steps, or how do you start to address that with the individual?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of big umbrella word, isn't it? Work on your mindset. What does that?
Yeah, no,
what
totally.
Does that actually mean?
And I do think, honestly, in the past week, I've got 2 different friends who've been on 2 different business courses, and they've both said to me the course was shit because it had a lot of mindset work in it, and that won't make a difference in my business, or that won't add revenue to my business. And I find it really interesting, people's perspectives on it, because for sure those 2 people are great people, but they've definitely got things they can improve on. But like, I think a lot of, do you know, because to be a business owner, a lot of them are big personalities, they get kind of shut down to, but I've got something I could unlock or change. I think like, especially maybe quite a lot of like a male approach to it can be a bit, oh, that's woo, or it's fluffy, or...
Yep.
So I could imagine it's quite hard sometimes to introduce that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to sport as well, and that took me back to a little bit of an imposter syndrome battle I faced in that I was coaching people who were better at the sport than I am. I mean, just to be clear, I am rubbish at tennis. I am not good at tennis at all, and I've had a few lessons that some people have argued there is a tennis player in there. I disagree. I'm coaching people that are better at the sport than I am.
Yeah.
And that is also the same within the business framework. So for me, first and foremost, it's about being clear on the boundaries of our relationship. That, I'm not there to teach you business. I'm not there to tell you how to run your business better than you do. That's arguably what your board is for. That's arguably what your team of close advisors in and around you are. But often the bottleneck is an individual, and it's about awareness. And again, it's not for me to shine a light on that person's failings, but through a journey of self-analysis, that's where we start, and self-reflection. Often you get real realizations, and what I'm looking for is if I can ask a couple of the right questions, all of a sudden we get light bulb moments where the person sat opposite me will be like, right, it's clear as day, and then it's about, okay, if there is a deep, often we've all got issues, haven't we? And we've all got challenges from youth, and I may then also bring in a specific colleague to help me with an area of mindset. Perhaps there's some trauma, perhaps there's some stuff that is influencing limiting beliefs, because again we can talk about people's limiting beliefs or people's fears, but it's often stuff from childhood. I'm not a therapist, but I may bring somebody in for special help. But equally, sometimes it's very, very simple stuff. A lot of the people I work with are genuinely hardworking people. They genuinely want their businesses to do well. They genuinely want to provide for their families and their children. And often they're actually cutting themselves in that many pieces. There's no time for themselves. So we often focus on self-leadership, self-care, getting some balance back to their life, because we tend to have a clearer mindset. Just for example, and I'm aware I'm going off in different tangents here.
No, please do, yeah.
One of the biggest epidemics we face now, and particularly in a corporate world, is not just poor but horrendous sleep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
And for me personally, my decision-making capabilities are so affected. They're so clouded when I'm not sleeping well.
Totally agree.
When I'm tired.
Yeah.
There is a bunch of different tools. There's a bunch of different tactics, but often it's really, really basic stuff, really simple stuff that I don't point out, but I kind of guide them along the path, and then they realise, and then we start putting a framework in place of looking after themselves, making sure they're at an optimum physical and mental condition. That's important, and then before you know it, they then start talking to me about the changes in strategy they're going to make, and the changes in their future visions, and the tactics they're going to bring in, etc., etc.
Yeah, it is starting to get talked about more now, isn't it? Sleep and just the basics, I guess, getting a Whoop is definitely one of the best things I've ever done, because it brought my attention to it.
Yep.
And I think for any business owner who's like, well, I'm just busy, or it can wait till later, or they are missing out on, it's ultimately a simple change, isn't it? Like sleeping, but also it has profound effects, doesn't it?
Massive.
Gosh, everything, like your happiness levels, your ability to even like take risk, think bigger.
Yeah, deal with conflicts.
Like,
you name it. But I mean, one area I'm really interested in is the stories that we tell ourselves, and often just again bringing an awareness to the stories that we tell ourselves. Is a game changer. For those of us that have got children, and in particular young children, that's probably easier. It's interesting the boundaries we put in place in terms of, right, this is bedtime, and before bedtime you've got this routine where you're not allowed on your iPad, or you're not allowed TV, or sugary sweets, or whatever those rules are, whatever those boundaries are. Yeah. But then somewhere in this journey of life, as we become an adult and we kind of don't have to answer to as many people and all that kind of stuff, or you may still have to at work, but certainly at home, the boundaries start to loosen, and you then start to put all these habits in place that sometimes just aren't serving you. But then you create this story of, I'm just doing this because of. Yeah. I'm just doing this because of. I mean, there's nothing that fascinates me more than if and when I check my social media, it's somebody that's posted at 3:00 in the morning saying that they're sick and not being able to sleep whilst doing the worst thing possible and then what they'll have done is justified it to themselves, and that's that story, and it's it's regular that I hear people who've got poor lifestyle habits, they're overworking, they're overstimulated, massively overstimulated, and then they've created all these permissions for themselves as why they're going to do that, because of this deadline, or because of this meeting, or because of this and this. And they are then at the absolute bottom, and how can they serve all these areas of their life, including themselves, but how can they be there for their children, a great leader at work, if they're operating at a 20% battery?
Yeah, it's impossible, quite frankly,
isn't it? It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. And they've given themselves all these permissions to work till, daft o'clock, or to be on their phone, in bed, laptops in bed, all that kind of stuff. We'll move on from that. But in my mind, it's a nonsense. And it's not about just, calling people out. It's getting them to realise that, hang on a minute, this is not the way to operate. This is not the way to live my life, and this isn't serving me, and I'm contributing towards my own poor performance.
And just on that, can we just talk, because I know you use the word discipline a lot, and I think those two things are mega connected, aren't they? Because I know from my own experience, so you say like we tell ourselves stories, or we set ourselves new permissions because, I don't know, work might feel hard, or this team member's just done that, or, a client's not paid. And so because I think a lot of people, because things feel hard, then they think by letting themselves have a glass of wine, or working later, or the things that don't, or staying up later and watching Netflix because it's like a treat, that it's almost a reward for but actually it makes things worse, the things that we kind of allow ourselves, but we know really they're not good. And I know you talk about discipline a lot, and I'm like in a kind of a bit of a journey of discipline at the moment, because I think it can be dead easy to remove it when you might have day on day on day where it's like there's so much going on and it feels like a lot. But then, and I know this, but I don't always do it, but I'm really kind of trying to understand how you implement this daily. When you do have discipline to not do the thing, your life becomes better and improved, and you become happier. I went on a bit of a David Goggins binge at the weekend, which I know is well extreme. Like that's not also necessary, but I just be interested to get your take on discipline and having discipline in your life to I guess be to be high performance, but also to be happier, and how you teach or how you use that with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to I think to reference that, life's for living.
Yeah.
Life's to be enjoyed, and it's nice to have a nice glass of wine, or it's nice to go out for a nice meal, or, let your hair down. Would not, not that I'd know about that, but it's nice. You've got to live your life.
Yeah.
You've got to live your life. But I talked about discipline a lot, and to bring it into the MAPS framework, the term that I use, which is the final S, is standards. I think it's, and without going down a rabbit hole too much, life is setting us up for convenience. Life is setting us up for quick things. And a friend of mine said to me years ago, which was a profound statement for me, he said, today's solutions have become tomorrow's problems, and at risk of going down a deep rabbit hole with this, which I kind of have been down a little bit sometimes as well. It's that our smartphones are brilliant, but they're also making us not very smart.
Yeah.
Look at people's spelling nowadays. I'm not here to judge or preach or anything, but I found myself almost writing on my phone in that mank twang, dare I say it, and I read a stat not so long ago, which I don't know if it's true, this stat, by the way, just to be clear, but it said that in America, when given the opportunity between taking the escalator or taking the stairs to the second floor, only 2% of people now take the stairs, which, again, I don't know if that stat is true. Let's say it's not, and let's tenfold that stat.
Yeah.
Even if it's only 20% of people, that's not a lot. And so everything is set up for convenience, and you're absolutely right. It brings about problems, and it took me over 20 years to I created a model on this, and it's quite simple. In that every day I think we're faced with micro decisions in our life, decisions that are either in our conscious or not, but we're faced with these micro decisions, and ultimately when you boil it down, and it comes down to one of two things. More often than not, it's a decision between short-term pleasure or short-term pain. And, why is it, to go back to your words a minute ago, why I'm old enough to remember, and you've set me off now, I'm old enough to remember when, if you missed a TV show, you missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had this thing called the Omnibus Edition on a Sunday or whatever. You may or may not be old enough to remember that. But if you missed a TV show, you missed it. And then we got quite posh in our house. We grew up with a simple life, but we got quite posh because we got a top load of video recorder, and it was like, wow, you can record some shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was great. But why is it that we sit up till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix and TV shows when they're not going anywhere? Mm-hmm. They'll be there tomorrow. They'll be there the day after. Now, of course, they're designed to hook us in and all that kind of stuff. But why is it we do that? Why is it that I was continuously, when I was younger, and maybe I could have been a bit more commercially, I'm sure some of the listeners would have a field day with me on this one, but when I was working a lot with pro boxers like Scott Quigg, who was known for being insanely ripped, I would get asked loads of times in my DMs or whatever, can I have Scott Quigg's diet plan? Can I have Scott Quigg's diet plan? And maybe I should have been a bit more commercial and sold a few of him. But ultimately, I wouldn't do it because that alone wasn't going to solve the problems. People know the difference between a cake and a tomato. People know the difference between cake and salad. We know what's healthy, what isn't healthy. So what is it? It's got to be more than that. And I loop back to this model of these micro decisions. We're faced with either the decision of short-term pleasure or short-term pain. And everything that we're wired to do is taking us towards short-term pleasure, convenience, fast. We're at a point now where we don't even go and pick our takeaways up anymore. Yeah. Yeah, we will sit and complain when they turn up cold or when there's something missing. We don't even get in our car to drive 5 minutes to pick our takeaways up. That's where we've got to. But the more we understand that these micro decisions of short-term pleasure, if they're repeated often enough, are going to take us to long-term pain, the better. The sooner we connect with that, the better. And that actually the flip side of the model is that micro decisions of short-term pain repeated often enough will take us to long-term pleasure. The sooner we connect with that, I believe that's when our work really accelerates.
Yeah. Is there a way to connect with it?
Like anything, you know, if we go to the gym, and this is where it becomes difficult, because in the world of hacks and in the world of quick fixes, we want the instant now, and that is maybe where the straight talking comes from, because you know, you don't go to the gym once and suddenly get big muscles. You don't go to the gym once and get a big bum or abs or get slim. These things require constant practice, continuous being in it, commitment, sacrifice. It's often sometimes about not just what you're prepared to do, but what you're prepared to, you know, lose. And then evaluation, self-reflection, what's going well and why? What are the lessons? That's the easier pathway. What are the lessons from when things are going well? But also, where can we improve? Not can we improve, but where can we improve? How can we tweak things? How can we evolve things so that we're continuing to improve? But it's a journey, and it's a journey that has no ceiling to it.
Yeah.
That's the key message.
Yeah, I do love that part on self-reflection, because I do think so many of us are just forward to the next thing, to the next, wake up in the morning, do the same thing. But that self-reflection has been, particularly in the last year for me, really key. Like when you're actually a bit more present about, even at the end of the day, how was it? Could I have done that better? Actually, you know, I should have been a bit less frustrated in that meeting. I could have done a better job there. That for me has been a big unlock of actually kind of being more mindful of how I'm being, kind of change it in the future. Whereas I think so many of us are just so on the treadmill, aren't we?
Absolutely.
You don't stop to think about where I can improve, what I can do better.
Absolutely. And conflict's a classic one with that, because when you feel wronged in a certain situation, it's easy to go down a path of, you know, well, you've said this and you did that, and there's those stories again. And so therefore I've done this, this and this. But if we can take a moment and actually pause, and that's something that I highly encourage in my coaching work, is a daily pause. And it's fascinating how many people struggle with it.
Yeah,
and,
just to stop
for 10 minutes and just to take a scan of the day and a scan of you. It's fascinating then if you're able to connect with, well, actually, what was my part in that? What was my part in that disagreement at work or that challenging meeting? Where can I improve? Yeah, there were things out of my control, the things that you said you did. But my reaction to them, my responses, they're all within my control. Which parts of that were led by my ego? Which parts of it were led by anger and emotion rather than rational thinking?
Yeah.
Self-reflection, you don't need to sit there with your legs crossed and, you know, vinyasing your day away and all that kind of stuff. You don't. But to take a pause and just analyse yourself and have a look at where you've done well, because patting yourself on the back is important. You know, there's so many people who don't do that as well. But also to just have a little look at areas of development. I think that's a big tool to put in the toolkit.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You have an analogy which I love, which I suspect has come from training and working with boxers. You call it the lonely walk, and I love it because I think one of my original descriptions of the podcast was, you know, being a business owner is a lonely place. And a lot of us look at other people and go, oh my God, how have they done that? How, like, I'm not doing well enough. And all of the stories, again, that we tell ourselves. The lonely walk, will you just tell me, like, where that came from, what it means?
Yeah, it was... When I first started with Team Hatton, and we you know, there was a bunch of boxing trainers that I'd work with, and I would work with the promotional side of the business, and with the then CEO and the management team, and with Ricky and all that, and this remit of guiding, you know, younger boxers through and taking them on this pathway to being a champion and everything that comes with that, and we had a period then of in and around the time that I'd started, we have about 20 or 30 fights where we didn't lose a fight. And of course, I took all the credit for that. You know, of course, it was absolutely, you know, not me at all. But, you know, I certainly tried to take the credit for it. But no, you know, all jokes. The point is, we were winning and things were going great. So self-analysis didn't really happen. You know, they might have watched with their boxing trainers, you know, the key moments of winning and all that kind of stuff. But then out of the blue, a fighter lost, and it was a bad loss, and he was knocked out, and it was a disaster, and it wasn't expected and all, and it was a real, you know, difficult moment, because it's a fascinating psychology, the gladiatorial psychology, that of when you're unbeaten and then all of a sudden unexpectedly you're beaten. So this big debrief then took place, and this big sort of, you know, looking at where went wrong and what went wrong, and of course, you know, and you know, the easy pathway would have been to start apportioning blame and all that kind of stuff, but it was really, really clear that this fighter was talented, and it was all about how can we improve, what have we missed, and it was interesting because a couple of conversations took place, and actually it was only then when the conversation with the fighter took place that the fighter then said, "Oh, I was beaten before I got in the ring," and we were like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I'm used to fighting in really, really small venues where literally 1 second you're in the changing rooms, the next second you're in the boxing ring, and you're starting, and you haven't really got time to think." But this time it was in a much bigger venue, and I was told to hang back for a bit, and there was TV cameras, and I had to sort of stand on the platform and pose and then take my time walking to the ring. And we were like, "All right." He said, "Well, I completely got inside my own mind," and that's that mindset piece we talk about. He said, "I was beaten before I'd even got into the ring." He said, "Even though I had friends there, family there, the coaching team were there," he said, "it felt like the loneliest walk in the world."
Oh, really?
And it was a profound moment.
Wow, yeah, I got goosebumps.
It was like, well, you know, we hadn't coached him to deal with the crowd. I don't even know how we could have done some of this, actually. You know, could we have made it a bit more progressive, the journey, because it was a big jump, but we hadn't coached him. We hadn't coached him to deal with his nerves. There was this mindset, and this is the thing a lot with sport, particularly when I do a lot of my talks and my seminars, and I'll open up with a slide of a lot of the athletes that I've worked with, and there's sometimes this belief that these people are superhuman
or different to us. Yeah,
they're just human.
Yeah,
and they've got all the same, you know, hopes and dreams, fears and insecurities that we have. And this boxer, I said, was completely beaten before he'd even got in the ring, because his self-talk had left him. He'd started completely visualising getting beat, nerves had kicked in, and by the time he got into the ring, he just didn't want to be there. He was exhausted because all that nervous energy,
the adrenaline,
all the adrenaline, everything else had got on top of him. And as it happened, then he got beat. He said it was the loneliest walk in the world. And that was profound for me, both in sport and again was a huge sort of pivotal moment in how I then started to look at this jigsaw puzzle of how I coached with athletes and what pieces of the jigsaw of high performance were missing. But then also, when I then started working with high performers in the world of business, well, again, going back to what I said before, the situations may be different, but the fundamental challenges are the same. That lonely walk is going into the biggest pitch of your life. That lonely walk is going into that meeting when you have to sign this client, otherwise we may have business problems. Or you're going to talk with investors or banks or business partners or any situation, because, you know, some people may agree. Sometimes people think that people at the top have got it easy. But actually a lot of them say to me, you know, it's being in the big chair, so to speak, it's a lonely place. It's their lonely walk.
No, I love that analogy. I think it's just so like, I think everybody listening to it like, no, I live it. Like at least once a week we go, oh, it's just me here making this decision, or it's just me that has to make this happen, or pay wages or whatever.
All that
the
responsibility
things might be.
on their shoulders,
No, totally. So just on the MAPS framework, I feel like I've mentioned it a few times now. Can we just like outline what your MAPS framework is to being a high performing individual? Yeah,
it's 5-step. 5-step frameworks, 5 pillars. The first pillar is mindset, as I think we've probably touched on. The second pillar is action, in a world of talking, in a world of stories, social media, telling the world what we used to do, what have we actually done, what are we doing today, what are we doing this week. So the second pillar is action. The third pillar is physicality. It's a bit of a macho word, that, but what I mean by that is that I genuinely believe that, and again, all the scientific data will tell you now that long-term sitting is doing as much damage to your body and your brain, your mind, as smoking. And that sitting is, yes, the links not just to neck pain, back pain, biomechanical or musculoskeletal type issues. Those links are perhaps a little bit more obvious, but the links between inactivity and dementia, the links between inactivity and poor, just even day-to-day poor memory function, the links between reduced growth hormone capability, reduced testosterone, reduced everything, earlier life expectancy, all linked to inactivity, heart disease, diabetes, all linked to inactivity. So it's my belief that getting a sweat on every day is really, really good for you. Yeah. And of course, we can't all go and be Olympians in a gym day in, day out, but we can move every day.
Yeah, of course. We can take the walk, can't we?
Exactly that. We can take the stairs, we can take the walk rather than the bus or the taxi or whatever that looks like. So I'm a big believer in physicality. We all know what the chemicals, how it floods your brain, exercise with those good chemicals that make us feel better. That all then links into the next P, which is performance, which is focusing on hydration. He says with a glass of water sat there, I'll get some of that in a second, but focusing on good quality hydration, focusing on hydration and the role of hydration, particularly early in the morning, instead of reaching for coffee. The role of sleep, the role of nutrition, the role of environment and culture and people is absolutely crucial. Being around people on the same journey as you.
Oh, interesting.
Absolutely crucial. People that lift you up on the days when, because you are human, the days when you don't feel that great or that your self-confidence has took a knock or you've got a bit of self-doubt, rather than being around people that tell you that your ideas are ridiculous or that you why are you going to the gym on a Friday evening while I go to a pub?
Yeah, and it's a tough one, that, isn't it? Because often the people that you have around you giving you advice, things are your friends and your family. Yep. But then I'm sure in sports and as business owners, I've had so many conversations with business owners but actually the people that are around you giving you advice and not the people that should be, are they? Yeah. And I don't know if you've got any advice on, because I do believe you have to find those people, don't you? You have to put yourself in the places where they are.
I think you've nailed it. I'm not here to kind of shit can people's friends and family. By the way, I'm sure they mean well.
That's it, isn't it?
They mean well. But sometimes when you're doing stuff, it shines a light on what they may or may not be doing. But either way. I'm sure if they're trying to give you advice, it's coming from the right place, but it's not always the right advice. And I think you've nailed it. Environment is crucial, and sometimes, our environments aren't quite set up for what we say we want to do. So you've got to be in the environment that is set up for that way. For to support what you want to do. If I want to get good at running, and I go in, an environment of people telling me that they hate running and that they never run, I'm pretty sure that that's going to make it harder. Where if I start going to run club, I don't fancy it, but I get myself there to the line. I'm pretty sure that the inspiration of seeing people take off, somebody being nice to me, somebody making a bit of conversation with me, these things will happen, will make me think, right, come on, I'll get it done. And you never feel worse for doing these things. Again, short-term pain equals long-term pleasure. Yeah, totally. So I think you've nailed it. You have to get off your arse and go and find the environment to be in. Me and Liam searched, and we were held up by COVID, but he wanted to, which I was absolutely buzzing about, he wanted to go on a martial arts journey. Okay. And that's something I've definitely been in and around all my life, but I've never quite reached the culmination of where I wanted to be, which is, by the way, there's no ceiling in it, doing it forever. What was the solution? We found the right club. We found the right club, a local club in Manchester that's not in a huge glamorous gym, but what it has got, the second you walk through that door, is it's got clear rules and boundaries, clear principles, a clear culture. That's the key word.
Yeah.
It's an environment of excellence. It's an environment of hard work, hard training, and aside from the fact it's given me and my son as he's growing up and going through those difficult years, he's 16 now, it's given us our thing, it's given us our commonality together. It has absolutely changed and grown every part of his life.
Oh, really?
From his self-esteem, his self-confidence, his mindset, his body, his discipline. We were laughing about it the other day because, as you know, even from today, I can occasionally push my timekeeping to the wire. And the easy story there would be, I'm busy and this, that, the other, like I'm sure a million people say.
Yeah.
We have never, and I'm not going to tempt this here, we have never even come close in over 4 years to being late for one of our kickboxing classes, because we are so tuned into the expectation
and the energy of it all.
The energy, that's the perfect word, the energy of that environment. It's an environment that it's a good place, by the way. They're friendly, they're a great bunch, but when you cross that door, there is clear expectations, there's a clear culture, there's a clear environment, there's a clear energy. And I think that is what you have to go and find. It's literally 5 minutes from my house, but I have to go and pick my son up on the other side of Manchester, then come back to literally where we are, then take him back and then come back again. It would be easier to find somewhere that is a more convenient location, but the sacrifice, and it's not a huge sacrifice, but is worth it to be in that environment, that culture.
I love that.
It is an absolute necessity for all of us. We've got to be around people on the journey that we're on and further ahead than us as well.
Yeah.
Make no mistake, me and Liam, we've had our asses kicked a few times.
Yeah.
Safe and controlled and all that, but we're improving by being around people that are better than us.
I love that. I think that's so important for business owners.
Yeah.
It really is. And whether that's a networking group, a mastermind, just a group of people that you put together yourself.
Absolutely.
I think having those standards that you all live to and push each other along, and it's so key, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a very a side example, and when I first joined Nigel Bottrell's mastermind 2014, one of the second or third visits, I overslept, and I already knew this was bad, but as I zoomed through the door, he's clearly fuming, and he's this can't happen again. We don't turn up to these things late. It was a complete my alarm didn't go off. That morning, it was when Amazon had first started doing same-day delivery. He ordered to the Entrepreneur Circle office this huge alarm clock, gave it to me in front of everyone, was like, you can use that next time. Now, it was all a bit jokey, but also I was very much I get it. He was like, no, you need to respect everybody's time.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never, ever been late again. And now I really thrive off that kind of the discipline, the place that he's in there for
standards.
A reason. The standards, that's the word that I'm looking for.
Final pillar of apps.
Yeah, and it was a total, to me, get a grip, what you like. And I think I was late because the night before I'd been in the hotel room on my laptop till 11 doing some shite that probably didn't really need to be done. And it's all just a continuation. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Going to places where those standards are no, that's not how we do things. It's so good. So good.
And I joked around about timekeeping a second ago. I would fully expect if I'm turning up for a coaching session and I turned up late, I would fully expect my client to say, no.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it.
Totally.
And whether that's the seminars or the coaching groups that I run, the standards are clear and they're communicated clearly. As a saying that I use a lot, you get what you communicate.
Yeah.
But again, that takes sometimes a bit of repetition.
Yeah, totally. We're whizzing through the time in this podcast and we don't have much time left, but I can't let us go without talking about the most amazing thing that you've created in Manchester, which is charity boxing nights. And it would just be really great. I don't want us to leave without talking about what you've created, why you created it, but also just any key learnings? Because it's kind of been a real mixture of sport, raising funds for the most incredible cause, and business owners supporting it, really bringing it into their culture of their businesses as well.
Yeah, it's it's we're very proud of it. It's a team effort. I must say that. I'm very blessed. I've got a great team that helped me with it. But we as people probably aren't aware. Sadly, my sister gave birth to a second child, and there were some complications in the birth. And Sophia was born, and she unfortunately had to go on what's known as the NICU ward at Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. She was actually born in another hospital. But she was transferred to the NICU, Newborn Intensive Care Unit, and it was very much in the hope of a miracle, really. And sadly for us, the miracle never came. And after 12 days, Sophia passed away, and it was it was a horrendous time for us as a family, for my sister, my brother-in-law, my mum. Who was in the birthing suite and everything. It was a really, really, rough time. And, when you've been on NICU, it's the kind of place that a lot of people don't actually kind of really know it exists. And I certainly didn't, even though I was already a parent. And thankfully, it's only when you're on NICU do you realise that you've got a major problem. And that your little baby, your little bundle of joy that you've been so looking forward to bringing into the world is in a desperate situation, and they're the tiniest of babies, often very, very, very small, the palm of your hand, and they are fighting for life from the second they are born. And NICU at Royal Manchester saves thousands of babies' lives every single year. I talk about our team who I'm blessed to have the support of, but our training camp photographer who gives all of his time up, Dave Graham he's called, he gives all of his time up for free, does some amazing photography for the fighters through training camp, which helps with social media and awareness and ultimately raising money. Just over a year ago, his other half, Sammy, their little girl Daisy was born, and she was very premature, and she had to go on to NICU. And she went on to NICU at RMCH, little Daisy, and they saved her life.
Gosh.
And there's other incidences of that as well, of people in and around charity boxing nights, which is what I decided to create. And I'd done one boxing event before, and I'd come across this concept in London of kind of, we talk about stressed out business people and going to, instead of going to the pub afterwards, going to the boxing gym and kind of relieving their stress, with boxing and stuff. I'd done one small event before, and it was awful. It was hard. The event was good, but it was hard work, honestly. And I remember being at the bar having a drink afterwards, and I said, I'm never doing this again. And I was never planning to do it again. And when Sophia passed away, I had been on NICU a couple of times, and it's a really tough place. And I just felt that I had to do something. And I just sort of thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this charity event again. And the idea just came back into my mind, and I was planning the event, Charity Boxing Nights, on a whiteboard in a little gym, which you remember.
Yeah, really? That one?
In Hill Keys, yeah. And a lady walked into the gym called Penny Pennington from Connecting Events, and she sort of said, "What are you doing?" And you talk about discipline, and I was in a tough spot, and it took every part of me. I pride myself on manners in life. It's one of my standards, but it took a lot to not say, like, we piss off and leave me alone. She was just lovely, but I wasn't in a good place. I was deep in concentration. I said, I'm planning this event. but would you mind? I'm, trying to get on with it, and she left me to it. And then for about 20 minutes later, she came back to me and she could see that I was struggling. And she said, just to let you know, I'm an event planner. I've got an event business. And I said, well, that's lovely of you. I said, but, I haven't got the money to pay you. And she said, don't worry about that. She said, any help you need, we're here for you. And that became the start of my relationship with Connecting Events. And she passed me on to Jordan Walker, who became my sort of sidekick with it all. And 10 years later, we're still going. We do the event every single year. We've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds now.
Yeah.
We're well over $500,000, probably close to $750,000 for NICU, and then a couple of other little subsidiary charities that are all based around NICU that we donate to, and we've had massive support from local business. That we couldn't have done it without the likes of EMi&x, Godel, OBT, Holborn Adams, JMW, there's loads, Clear Business, I could go on. We're very, very lucky to have the backing of some really, really good sponsors. But then what is also interesting is that quite a few of our fighters, who are first-time fighters only, quite a few of our fighters are parents that have been on NICU with their children.
Wow.
And we've actually had two of the lead nurses off NICU both participate as fighters in charity boxing nights. Both won, and it's created a big impact. It's become part of businesses' culture.
Yeah.
We've got new businesses more recently getting involved as well, and it's something we're very proud of, and it affirms this belief that I have, is that we all need a challenge in life. And I've seen this training camp take people from unfit to fit, from quiet as a mouse to in the boxing ring, and we're very strict over safety and all those kind of things. But I truly believe that within the work environment, we have targets for those reasons, because we would drift. It's kind of human nature. That if we've got a target, we're more likely to achieve a target, or a North Star, as I call it.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that I've had people cry their eyes out, telling me they can't do it, and go out there and surprise themselves. And that's the power for me of having something to focus on in work. But I think for us, in our self-leadership journey, in our pathway, we've got to have a challenge. And I suppose to round it off, I would encourage anybody, and that is a plug for charity boxing nights as well, by the way.
It is fantastic.
But to challenge yourself, to do something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone, to do something that makes you feel a little bit nervous, where you need some coaching, some guidance, some help. Because the sense of achievement that all of our fighters, regardless of whether they've won or lost, they've all won.
Yeah.
The second they climb through those ropes, they have won.
Yeah.
And they are skills then that they've developed, not only, combat skills, but physical and mental performance skills that they can take into every area of their life moving forwards.
No, I totally vouch that. We just remembered we had one of our team do it a couple of years ago, and just to add to that, I mean, it is fantastic to see what you've created, but that kind of combination of businesses having something to give towards, but I don't know, sometimes it's hard to understand what charity to give to, or the way with charity boxing nights, like the business is fully behind it, they're so connected to Royal Manchester Children's Hospital, and then team members that have then participated in it as well. Like, it's a real great connection of, they've got a team member who's striving, challenging themselves, the business is donating money. I just think the whole eco of it is culture.
We've got a photo from this year, and it's one of my favourite photos ever, and it's one of the ladies from Godel Technologies, and she's come out for a fight, and she's flexed, and you can see her partner, and there's 2 or 3 of her senior leadership team as well, and the sense of joy and pride in their body language. They're all cheering, and it's one of my favourite photos because it encompasses everything that we try and do. Is that we've taken this lady on this journey. She's done amazingly well, and then she's got so much support from friends, partners, and within the business that she works at as well. And that encompasses everything that we do.
No, that's amazing. Ric, if anybody wants to find you, where would they find you?
Yeah, so on my website, I've got my personal website, which is ricmoylan.co.uk, RICMOYLAN, and that's the same on all the social media channels as well.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a real joy. We talked about high performance, discipline. I just known you for so long now, and I know that you're really passionate about getting people to be the best versions of themselves, and it really comes through.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ric.